This is yet another episode of Career Talks by Ontology of Value, and it's a special episode prompted by the hot science article dedicated to the controversy around the Tiki Scientist Diamond program. I'm excited to welcome our special guest to this episode, Dr. Chris Caterine. Chris received his PhD degree in classics from the University of Virginia, where he conducted a detailed analysis of language to assess how literature contributes to political and cultural identity. Today, he works full-time as a sales strategist for a global consulting firm. Next to his prestigious industry job, since 2017, he's been serving as a career advisor for academics seeking work outside higher education. He authored a highly successful book entitled Leaving Academia, a Practical Guide, published by Princeton University Press. Chris is a pathfinder who helps PhDs find orientation in unfamiliar landscapes so that they can seize unexpected opportunities. In this episode, we will discuss the Tiki Scientist case and the alternatives to such platforms that can effectively help you start your industry career as a PhD. Let's go. Hello, Chris. Great to have you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Yeah, and so let's start from the bomb that was just dropped in the space of coaching and career advisory for PhDs. On the 13th of September, the Science published a new op-ed dedicated to the famous or maybe infamous Tiki Scientist platform. So Tiki Scientist is one of the most known or even the best known platform for dedicated to helping PhDs leaving academia on behalf of industry jobs. Established in 2013, it's definitely one of the first outlets for PhDs starting new venture in their lives, and highly successful. Lots of clients, definitely very big team at this moment, and lots of marketing. So if you're a PhD student or graduate, chances are you've at least seen the ads of Tiki Scientist and their charismatic leader Isaiah Hankel somewhere online. Yeah, I think his face is quite well known at this point. According to the article, there are certain practices by Tiki Scientists that are questionable from the ethical standpoint, and we will be first discussing obviously this topic and what our opinions are here. So let me ask our today's guest, Chris Caterine, what his thoughts were when the bomb was dropped and the article came out.
I was really struck by first of all, just how problematic this was from an ethical standpoint. I think that's probably everybody's reaction. I think anybody who's left academia has felt the desperation of leaving. And I think the idea that somebody who had done that themselves might be taking advantage of somebody in a similar situation was hard to swallow. At the same time, as I was thinking that is not the choice I would have made, I realized that the economics of this market is really challenging. And there's a huge demand for support leaving academia. Most of the people who are trying to do so do not have a lot of money. And because of that, people who are trying to make a living in this space need to make sometimes difficult choices about how to balance their need to bring in enough money against the lack of resources of the people they're trying to help.
Yeah, so to introduce more detail of the story, I personally have never been a client of Tiki Scientist myself, but it seems that they have one specific program that is more personalized than just a general admission to the platform, but is also priced accordingly. So the cost is kind of in the range of the big coaching programs from big fish in the coaching space, like Tony Robbins. It already goes into thousands and thousands of dollars, in the range of $5,000. I think this is the most expensive coaching program for PhDs I've ever heard of. And the sales practices are they more from what I understood from the article, they resemble the sales practices practiced by those gurus of like coaching industry and self-development industry. So high persuasiveness, professional sales assistants who go through a traditional sales process with one-on-one calls and creating scarcity, which is I would say it's not illegal. It's actually, you know, it's a very standard and persuasive and successful sales strategy. The article also focuses on a few cases of clients who, after buying into the service, they realized and taking loans that were also prepared. So it seems that Tiki Scientist not only sells those packages, but also collaborates with a dedicated company that files for loans right away, so that the leads can actually go through the whole process of taking a loan during a sales call and closing before closing the deal, which is and this part is especially fishy because it seems that many of these clients, by going into the program, they go beyond their means. They don't really have money for the program. They have to literally have a loan, get a loan to complete the training. So the management of the Tiki Scientist knows perfectly well what they are putting those people into, right? So people who don't have jobs or are in a high danger of becoming jobless soon, and kind of pressed into taking loans to get onto the program. And this is particularly ironic, given that Tiki Scientist, and its leader, supposed to know best how it feels to be a PhD leaving academia. It's not the outlet that, you know, supposed to kind of follow those practices. But that's also the question, like, what is the difference between being illegal and being unethical, right? Because on the other hand, this practice became kind of not maybe standard, but quite popular in sales, I would say, industry. So yeah, this is a very complex problem, in fact, and I understand your point that actually this group of clients, this group of leads, is particularly vulnerable, and I have to say I was vulnerable too. And especially after academic, like spending 20s in academia, I had to also learn in hard way how the real life works. And I have to say, like, just a little story time. Like, I myself, I lost a lot of money from scams after my PhD contract expired, because I was just so green. I felt like I had too much like faith in people after spending all my 20s like just behind a desk and studying. So actually I fell into a lot of crypto scams when I was finishing my grad school, and I have to say that this was like hard lesson of reality, like what's the difference between street knowledge and book knowledge. And I think that many of the Tiki Scientist clients, they don't have that notion yet, that there is, you know, like you have to read the instructions and documents in small print, because what is legal is not necessarily ethical. So that's one comment I'd like to make.
Yeah, I think you kind of come out of academia with this community mindset, right? We're a community of scholars, we're all together. And then you start leaving academia, and when you go on social media, you see, oh, we're all in this together, we'll help each other. And then somebody comes along and says, oh, I have a way to help you. And it can be very, very tempting, I think, to say, oh, it's the same community, it's the same type of help. There are many people out there who are offering good help, who are doing it in an ethical way, even as they make a living off of doing it. But it is not the case that everybody needs to be or would be. And so, yeah, I think you take a very often scared client base that doesn't know what's coming next, that feels like they can trust somebody. There's an awful lot of potential for abuse in this situation. And it's unfortunate that some people fell into that here.
We are all emotional, so like our intelligence doesn't save us from falling for scams or like just making unreasonable investments. Actually, famously, Isaac Newton was one of the scholars that were extremely successful in science, but not necessarily in personal investing. He actually plunged his fortune in a so-called South Sea bubble. There was a South Sea company like at his times that was actually a scam from the get-go, but somehow it kind of won the hearts of the public, and there was a whole big bubble around it. And at some point, Newton got into FOMO and got himself into the investment and lost his fortune. And he allegedly said, that's a quotation, he could calculate the motions of heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. And I think we have to remember that our PhD, like our grad school, doesn't really teach us how to handle emotions when handling our money. So if you're thinking about the coaching program, sleep with it. You know, it's like you don't have to do it like day one or during the sales call. If someone pushes you to take a decision within like 30 minutes time limit or whatever, there's a counter on the screen, then run, because that means yeah, they are not legit, or they know very well that they are kind of yeah, manipulating you at the moment to generate FOMO. So don't do it. Chris, I know that you yourself didn't go this path, so you released your fantastic book. You're still working full-time in industry, and you help PhDs on the side, but you decided not to take the coaching route. I'm not American, okay? Like I still make those like mistakes, and I have to say, I always like make it's so hard for me to embrace like the difference between a couch and a coach. And I called myself a couch so many times, like people laugh at me, but I still cannot learn like after so many years.
But that's the other danger of coaching, is it can start venturing towards the therapist couch, in fact, and you need to make sure you hold back from that too, because we're not qualified to do it.
Yeah, this name came from somewhere, right? Okay, so but yourself, like interestingly, you never went down that path, although it feels so natural in your case, as you're such a good teacher and speaker. So maybe you could tell us more about that. Like, how did you make that decision, and what's in your mind the best ways of helping PhDs?
I was in a somewhat unique position when I wrote my book, because I was working full time with a global consulting company, and for me, it was never the case that I was trying to help other people leave academia just to pay my own bills. And I was sort of faced with a realization at a certain point. The book came out, I had people coming to me and wanting to be coached, and I kind of experimented with that, but I realized pretty quickly that because I had a corporate salary, my time was effectively becoming more costly. And so I would need to charge people more money than I felt fair charging them to make it worth my time to coach as many people as I might need to make a business out of it. And I decided that is not something that I want to do. It didn't feel right to me. And so I really tried to find other ways to bring my message out that wouldn't require that investment of time, and wouldn't require me to extract money from individuals on an ongoing basis, at least not for my time. So the book was one piece of that, right? It's 200 odd pages of advice that you can pick up and get whenever you want for $20. That seems like a pretty good value to me. I also began doing speaking engagements for universities. And while I'm not going to go and ask an individual for $5,000 for coaching for me, I have no problem going to a university and asking them to cover a speaking fee for me to talk to their students and coach their students, because generally speaking, universities have enough money to absorb that cost. So, using proceeds from the book and from the speaking engagements, I've decided to do a limited amount of coaching one-on-one, or at least take networking calls and advisory calls without charging anybody anything. And so I found sort of a different model that allows me, yes, to make some money from this work, but to do it sort of through other channels, and then effectively do some of it pro bono in a way that doesn't extract more money from people who are often pinched.
Yeah, that's very smart. Very smart and ethical. Obviously, I got a very high work ethic of you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think yeah, I myself I have a little bit different business model, but I can definitely see your points. Yeah. So by this occasion, I think we could give the viewers a little bit of advice and guidance in terms of what is out there. If not Tiki Scientist, then what? There's a question. So what are the different channels and outlets to learn about the and plan for what you might do with your career outside academia?
Thank you for asking this, because I think this is like the big question with this this expose in science is who can you trust? What's actually good? Where do I go? And how do I make sure that I don't get scammed too in the process? To my mind, there are really four main categories of help that PhDs or graduate students can get if they're seeking to broaden their career prospects. So the first one would be university affiliated programs. The second one would be communities and podcasts. The third one would be independent coaches. And the last one would be articles and books. So hopefully we can spend a little bit of time talking about each of those.
Let's start with universities. So I can see that shift in the culture. And a few years back, here in like I'm based in the Netherlands. So in the Netherlands, it was usually the case that you would have to kind of go to indeed like independent coaching firm to get the training. And now universities open their own career centers. And I know that in the US, this is tradition for much longer. And it's actually professional. So PhDs get professional help in terms of crafting their post-academic careers at the universities. What is your opinion about doing internships during PhD? Because I think some PhDs already. I mean, some academics already choose to do industry PhDs, which is basically to have two hosts for a PhD, one being a private company and one being a university, and then just to start their industry career already, like from being like with one foot in industry. I think it's interesting, although it's actually hard to maneuver in that type of PhD, because then you have to serve to two gods that have different aims, right? Because one of them is like only after like revenue in the end, and the other one is after academic achievement. So this is like really hard to, like from what I know, this is hard to navigate. But that's one option, and the other is, as you said, these specialized programs. And I heard of programs at some universities where they actually make excursions, like one-day excursions to private companies. And I think this is really interesting, when you can take a tour around the like corporate environment and just talk to the managers and just ask all the questions you have about the reality of working there. I think this is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's for both sides, because obviously most employers today, like it's really hard to find a top employee. So for them, it's also a way to scout future employees. So that's actually, everybody wins.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the point of internships, which is what you led with, I think I would love to see more of it. I think internships can be a great way to get experience, especially if it's a stint over the summer. Changing the culture so that professors, especially in the humanities, don't view this as a grand betrayal of the academic mission and a sign that their student isn't going to stay in the field, all that nonsense. I think changing that culture is important before that can really take root. If that change can happen and people can do it, I think it would be a great opportunity in disciplines where that's more normalized. Absolutely, I think that can be an awesome use of time. And as it relates to the university career programs, I do just want to correct one thing. In the US, the career centers have been around for a very long time, but they've generally been serving undergraduates and business school students. So it's really much more recent that we've seen massive growth for this at the graduate student level, especially the humanities and sciences. And so when I began looking outside of academia around 2015, there was not a lot out there. And the number of these programs inside universities has been exploding since then. The Grad Career Consortium, which is the professional society for people doing this work, has been growing by leaps and bounds. So we've really been seeing a big change in that space. And the colleges are getting smart quick on what they need to do to support individuals. So if you are housed in a university right now, if you have one of these things available, sometimes it's in-house, sometimes it's sort of a paid subscription with an online self-directed service that you get access to. But yeah, I mean, these things are out there. And so it's good to seek them out.
Okay, so let's move towards podcasts. Are there, I guess there are many podcasts we can recommend.
There's so many podcasts, and I think, you know, if that's a way that you like this one, if that is a way that you like to get your information and you have a host who you like, great, throw yourself into it. And I think podcasts are awesome because they're free and they can be sort of a good way to build community with other people who are listeners. And there are online communities too, whether it's Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups aimed at PhDs, either writ large or from different sectors, that can give you an awful lot of information. I think the challenge with that type of resource is that it's kind of like hit or miss what you're going to get. You never know, you know, in a podcast, say, whether you're going to get exactly the information you need. If it's going to be a comprehensive view, it might give you a sense, it can be helpful, but it's not going to give you kind of a whole framework that you can apply. So if you're stuck and you find one that works for you, really great starting point, free, we like that. It's good. Same thing with communities. You might ask somebody for help. You have no idea who's going to say yes. And they might give you good advice, but they might not. So I think both of these are good, but that's sort of the trade-off, is that you lose a little bit of control over quality when you start looking. Right.
And I have to say that also we always like to hear, to tell listeners, network, but sometimes this advice falls on deaf ears. And really, like, every time like a guest on the podcast say, hey, ask me questions if you have any, please contact me through LinkedIn, contact me, they mean it. And I can say that it's quite uncommon that people indeed go ask questions. They sometimes tell me, hey, great episode, what a great guest. And but I can see that they would like to talk, and they cannot get over this mental barrier to really write to this person, like, because everyone who appears on the screen, it's a bit like the stage effect, right? If you appear on the screen, you seem to be like on a pedestal, and this creates that barrier. But like, people who come to speak and spend their time speaking for free, like we do this pro bono right now, right? So you're so like nice to be here and to donate your time to share your knowledge, then obviously you would answer a question, right? Like in private. So guys, just ask questions, like knock at the doors, like contact the people whose knowledge you appreciate, right?
But there's an academic mindset issue in this too, which is that academics sort of pride themselves on talking about how busy they are all the time. And everybody's saying, oh, I have so much to do, I can't possibly make time for this, that, and the other thing. And it's almost like this competition to say who's working more hours, who's busier. And so you get in this habit, or at least I did, and the people in my circles did, of not wanting to impose on other people's time. And the idea of asking somebody, especially somebody who's been on a public stage, for their time feels like a transgression. And that is not the case. Actually, it's just a weird kind of thing that we're acculturated to do and think as academics. But as you said, Natalia, most of the time when people come into this kind of a forum to help, we love getting feedback. We love getting questions. And, you know, I might not be able to make 60 minutes for you individually, but I can probably reply to a comment that you make on LinkedIn very easily.
All right. So now what we have next is private coaching.
Yeah, topic of the day.
Yeah, I personally know private coaches who are active in the space for years and years and successfully, like Jen Polk, a really great mind and great person, and I think she's really good coach. But again, like as you said, the economics of coaching works against this like business model. It's just like not a target group that would be like spending money lightly, and also Sorry for the sunshine. And they're like, I'm you know, like in a place where like around noon, this is like a golden hour because of the weird like architecture of the building where I am. Sorry, guys. Anyways, this is San Francisco, so like, well, this happens. Well, as you said, like the economics is kind of I wouldn't say flawed, but it's just not an easy situation. The people who need the help the most are the same people who like have the most shallow pockets, right? So it's like really hard to find a match between a coach and a coachee so that everyone is like happy with the deal and everyone like gets good value, right?
Yeah, and one-on-one coaching is really expensive for coaches because they need to take the time to find clients, to prep for the meetings, to do the coaching, to follow up. It's not just the hour that you spend with them. There's all this other time to find enough clients. And so, yeah, it becomes a really expensive proposition pretty quickly, which is why I think you see more independent coaches building self-directed training through a learning management system and then selling subscriptions to that as a way to free up their time so that when they do coaching, it can be targeted. It will be more expensive one-on-one, but you know, my guidance to anybody is like one-on-one coaching should be sort of the last resort. Find the cheaper options. Find the thing you get at your university for free. Find a podcast you like. Network through communities. If you want the structure of learning, maybe pay for a subscription, provided that it's a reasonable price you can afford. And like only when you're getting really specific about what you think you want, then go in and really maximize that time from a coach, if that's an expense you can afford to and think you need to incur.
Absolutely. I have to say that I sometimes coach, like one from time to time, but I wouldn't do this full time. It's just, for me, it's also the additional value of coaching is that I get to know the problems of the target group I'm kind of creating content for better, because to help someone, I have to know precisely what their like daily struggles are, like what is their pain points, and exactly like what their like work life looks like, and what are the desire is, like what's the dream. So for me, like every time I coach, I feel like I get the same, like I learn as much as they learn. So like we both learn from each other, and that's the only reason why coaching is like worth the time for me. Like as you said, like the bare economics of it is really bad for both sides.
But I will say that, like you said, Jen Pope, there are people who do this and I think focus on one-on-one and make it work economically. And there are good actors out there. But if you're thinking about hiring a coach, before you pay the money, get referrals, get references, and like talk to people that they haven't directed you to make sure that you're dealing with one of the good ones.
Absolutely. Okay, and lastly we have books and
books.
Your specialty. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, books and articles at this point abound, right? When I wrote my book, I think I had like 2 things that I included in the lit review because that was all that existed. And now it's blown up. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been able to keep up with the number of books and articles and coaches and new people in the space. It is dizzying. So I understand how people could get lost and fall victim to scams here. But the nice thing about books and articles is they can't try to take your money. And so you can go ahead and read them. And you know, the challenge with articles is that they are on a narrow set. So if you are facing a specific challenge and you find an article that helps, that can help you drive through, that's great. What an article probably isn't going to do is give you a bigger framework for how to strategically approach a career change. And I would say that that's one of the places where books tend to do a better job, is in giving you a model, a framework that you can apply. So you can kind of put one foot in front of the other as you go through this process. So you can know what's coming down the line and psychologically get ready for it. And whether it's my book or somebody else's, the key thing is you're getting the lay of the land before you dive into it. And I actually think a book is a great place to start because it's familiar to academics, right? It feels a little bit closer to what you're already doing day by day. And again, it can just give you a sense of what's the landscape I'm stepping into and how the heck do I navigate all this stuff that you're about to encounter, which can be really overwhelming. when you get out into the wild.
Okay, and I can see your book in the right there in the scenery. So maybe let's talk about your book right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what the gist of the book is? Like, what's your main message? We all know what we are here for, right? To help PhDs start their careers outside of academia. So, but is there anything you would like to tell us about the book to help our viewers choose this book over any other book in the space?
I really believe that leaving academia is so hard because to so many of us, it is giving up a vocation. And if you give up a vocation, you're not just losing a job. It's not just what you do. You're losing an identity. And so throughout the book, I try to be highly attuned to how it feels at each stage of the process. And I divide it up into kind of 6 phases roughly with corresponding activities. As you move from being an academic who doesn't get to be an academic anymore, feeling a sense of dread, to somebody who's actually in a new job and acclimating to a new work environment. And for me, the knowledge that I brought of what it's actually like to go out and do that, what it feels like each step of the way, and sort of marrying the emotional guidance and coaching with the practical steps you need to do to make this happen, I really think that that's the special sauce in my book.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much, Chris, for joining us today. And yeah, I would like to encourage everyone to grab the book from Chris, and we'll link it below. And thank you so much, Chris, for your insights. And yeah, have a great day, everyone. If you have any questions for Chris, find him on LinkedIn. Where else, Chris? LinkedIn.
Right now, just LinkedIn. Yeah.